Well, the stocking of Lone Star largemouth bass is underway this spring. Lone Star largemouth bass are the grandkids of some of the biggest bass ever caught in Texas. In tonight's Hooked on East Texas, we trace the origin of the Lone Star bass and what brought us the next chapter of big bass fishing in Texas.
Good looking fish.
It may seem that stalking fingerling Lone Star largemouth bass is the beginning of this story. But it's not. It's really the next chapter. To find out where it all started, to really know how Texas Parks and Wildlife got here in the history of Texas big bass, we've got to go all the way back to the start of the 20th century. That's when Texas started building reservoirs for agriculture, flood control, and water sources. Today, there are 1,100 reservoirs in Texas. The state fish of Texas is the Guadalupe bass, found in the Guadalupe and Llano rivers in the Hill Country. But in the 1970s, a new kind of bass was brought to Texas.
Florida largemouth bass were brought in by Bob Kemp, who was the Inland Fisheries Division Director back in the early 70s, and he actually paid for those out of his pocket.
Stocking Florida largemouth bass combined with research, rules, and regulations came with big results. The Texas state record bass went from 13 pounds to 15 pounds by the early 80s. Since everything's bigger in Texas, the ShareLunker program kicked off in 1986.
So then we started selectively taking some of those really big 13-plus pound females and selectively breeding those with other fish that have proven to that size.
From 1986 through 2022, TPWD stocked millions of Florida largemouth bass fingerlings. Biologists say yearly stockings are needed because you can't control weather conditions such as drought, and there are natural fluctuations in bass having baby bass. But over time, the stockings were all done with DNA in mind.
We also do that to try and maintain a good high genetic integrity of our wild populations.
And it's paying off. 650 13-pound plus bass have been loaned to the ShareLunker program, including the state record largemouth bass that weighed more than 18 pounds in 1992.
These pure Florida bass that became ShareLunker bass, not just a pure Florida bass, but a pure Florida that has proven to get over 13 pounds in this state, right? We held some of those back for broodstock. We stocked most of those back out into the lakes. We kept some for broodstock, and we have spawned those.
That brings us to 2023 in the Lone Star largemouth bass. They are the grandchildren of ShareLunker bass, and now TPWD is stocking millions of these fingerlings every year. The fingerlings are predicted to grow to ShareLunker size over the next decade.
To stock millions of these with that genetic capabilities and our genetic research gets better, we're only going to see great bass fisheries get even better and better in the great state of Texas.
All right, Lang tells us at the Texas Freshwater Fisheries Center, they are converting their whole hatchery over to producing and stocking Lone Star largemouth bass. And you know what? It takes 8 to 12 years for these to reach that 13-plus pound size. So you got some time, but man, the future of bass fishing in East Texas looks fantastic. All right, let's talk about our